So my name is DJ Taz Rashid, and I can say for the last 10 to 13 years, I've been working really closely with different teachers and brands in the wellness community, specifically yoga, meditation, breathwork, certain brands like Wanderlust, One Commune, Mind Valley, Apple Fitness Plus, and those are some of the bigger ones, but then the list goes on, working with hundreds of actual yoga teachers and yoga studios as well. And of course, performing at their festivals and events and online programs, and then licensing with a lot of these communities as well. So I have probably released over 800, 900 tracks over this period of time. A lot of them are actually under different names because I'm a ghostwriter as well for certain brands. So I make music from lo-fi, hip hop, deep house, ambient, drones, down tempo, and then as my DJ Taz Rashid brand, I release different styles of music as well because I just love different music. So my audience loves that because as yoga teachers or meditation or breathwork teachers, they're able to find a lot of variable or different types of music from my own library, and I have programs to help them where I license my music to them at a very affordable cost, so they can monetize their products and videos online, courses, things like that. So that's been a real beautiful way to help them as well.
The old rules and frameworks don't work anymore, and deep down, you know it. The Holomovement Purpose Lab is where we come together and remember who we are and why we came. New teams are forming this September at ourlightnet.org/purpose. Together, we rewrite the map. Hi, my name is Zenka Caro. I'm founder of LightNet, and my passion and purpose is to make the impossible possible. I'm here today with DJ Taz Rashid, who brings the high vibe beats of house together with tribal and international music to festivals, yoga gatherings, and consciousness events around the world. He's a sound alchemist and a wizard that really knows how to blend music with consciousness and intention. He can be found performing on stages like Burning Man, Bhakti Fest, Wanderlust, and he also has an incredible body of work which supports yoga and fitness instructors around the world to bring this incredible conscious music to their classes. He also has created a lot of royalty-free music, which you can find on Insight Timer, Apple Music, Yoga Download, and more. He is a good friend of the Holomovement as he has worked to promote this idea of oneness through his incredible career as a DJ around the world.
My purpose when I had the major download, I remember it was 2011, it was to awaken humanity and empower them with music. Very clear. So today, what I do today, today I'm a full-time music producer. I'm also a DJ, a multi-instrumentalist. I'm a father, husband, and I create music for primarily the wellness community. Meditation music, yoga music, also dance and fun remixes, but primarily music to use for embodiment practices. Going back to how I discovered and when, interestingly, I wasn't even DJing yet or producing music when I discovered what my purpose or mission in life. And I remember I was working with my friend Soleo, he's a coach, and he had me tune in and we wrote it down. And this is what came through. I was a musician at the time, not full-time or anything, but this was the download that I'm going to use this gift and this passion somehow, not sure what the how is yet, and I was told not to worry about that, and I knew that that it would come to me, But there was a trust in trusting this download that came through. even when I didn't know how I would do it. I wrote it down. Yeah, we went through some practices of going inward and connecting with what's most important, what gives us most joy, and I've been working on this for a while until I connected with my friend coach, and what makes me feel happy when I do something, and everything was pointing towards when I'm playing music or writing a song. There was no money attached to it at this time. There was nothing financial, or it was very free. It was like, what makes your heart happy? That was a big first question, and that was pointing towards this. And I was in a place, because I had just left my corporate job, where I was just open to anything. So I wasn't trying to think like, hey, this has to be a career path. It was more like, what is a calling that is coming through right now? I was on stage now. So I got the download, I wrote it down, and at this time I was not working. I was just getting out of, like I said, my last corporate job, which was in a cubicle, and that job helped me in many ways, but it was not a fulfilling thing. It was my boss actually let me go and I look at that, he had basically gave me permission to walk down this rabbit hole that I went through, and it was beautiful. And what happened was I started saying yes to small opportunities in my local town in Chicago that vibrated energetically as a yes. They weren't necessarily like this big music project or anything like that, but there were small yeses towards this creative path. So I didn't have the answer right away, but I noticed that these small opportunities where it would come, because I did have to figure out how to make a living, because I had bills to pay, I had an apartment, I was in a relationship, we got, you need to eat, right? So I was like, what can I do? So I noticed these small opportunities that would pay this and that. And they were energetically, they were yeses, and I trusted them. And I also knew they weren't forever, because that's a big thing to know, that they're not like a long-term thing. And they were steps. Now when I look back, there were little steps, little synchronicities, and little mini miracles that led to other larger opportunities and miracles. So I had to go through those opportunities. The word sometimes obstacle, but there weren't even any obstacle. They were just literally opportunities where I was like a video game. You jump from one and then you get on an island all of a sudden So there's a lot of things. And I also met the group Greenheart Transforms, which is part of Greenheart International in 2012, which was the year I left, which is the year after I left the corporate world. And those were small opportunities that grew, So it was saying yes to opportunities that right now, if I look back, be like, I wouldn't do that right now necessarily, but back then there was a lot of trust in connecting with that. What are some examples of these opportunities? So this is like, I almost sometimes do like an audit of opportunities of what I went through, because there are so many cool things. So right when I left the corporate world, I was playing in different like mantra bands, like kirtan type gatherings and groups in Chicago. And I remember the owner of Yoga Now, it's a studio, she was just like, hey, you want to work at my front desk? I have an opening at 6 a.m. on Saturday. And I was like, good Lord. I was just like, okay. I went and did that for like 2-3 months. It lasted a short time, but I connected with that yoga community. There was like an energy. So all these were little like ways of growing energy in a world that I find myself in now. So who would have thought I would work front desk at a yoga studio? Like most people don't even know about that. I don't even know certain terminologies or this and that, but I just said yes, right? So that was one small instance. There was a community called Bodhi Spiritual Center. It's like a kind of like an agape spiritual center, which is out in California. It's like a sister church, love church, celebrating New Thought and Ernest Holmes and The Secret and Laws of Attraction, things like that. And this Reverend Mark Anthony Lord, who was the Reverend of this community, very open. My wife and I started going and attending their weekly gatherings, and we found a community. So this is actually a very important part in the purposeful path, because I surrounded myself with other individuals that were looking for their purpose or on it, and they were in different parts or chapters of their book. And so there's so much inspiration around to support what I was going through. And I was part of that group for almost a year and a half before I was let go from my corporate world. So that's the interesting thing, is that it didn't happen overnight. Like when I was let go, I had a community support me right away. And then interestingly, this reverend, he saw something in me where we had dinner, and he was like, and he had told me when I was in the corporate world, you're not going to be in this for 2 months longer. I can already see that. There's other plans for you. And when I was let go from there, him and I connected, and he found opportunities at this church for me to help them, which would allow me to earn income. Very small projects, but it was like organizing their operational management of their Sunday service in the morning, their welcome team, right? I was like crazy stuff, but like it was teaching me to connect with that community, teaching me skills of running groups and teams, getting myself organized as an entrepreneur, which I was not yet. That's the thing, is like I was always taking orders from a corporation or a boss. This was teaching me to start having my own schedule. I remember my first time I had my own appointment book. Someone was like, you need a book to write down your appointment. I was like, because I always had the work corporate thing. This is like a whole mind shift that started taking place of your own schedule, your own opportunities. Of course, with Green Heart International, I was part of I did an event with them. Their first Green Heart, it was called Transform. I have to look up what the name of the event was, but it was Green Heart Transforms the World or something like that back in 2012. It feels like so long ago. But it was their first event, and I was DJing it, and I was playing music, but they were like, oh, you're kind of involved with the community. Why don't you join our team as a consultant to help with marketing and some music stuff? When we have events, you can do our music. I was like, yes. It was another step that grew. Interesting with the Green Heart lineage, they had a Green Heart music team, and I started working with them. So I was working with that producer in Ibiza, Spain. His name is Ingmar Lowe. We made music together. So all of a sudden, like, these opportunities were growing. And my wife and I, we were growing our own community of meditation and a spiritual dance party, because I taught myself how to DJ in Chicago as well. So there's all these multiple parallels happening at the same time that was growing, but they were all connected. If you look at it now, they're all like leading towards, there was no like, oh, that didn't make sense at all, There's actually one other group that I work with. It was called Poetry Pals. Very different from all this, but I see now why I did that. So that was working with Jews, Christians, and Muslims, kids in different interfaith schools. Like, I'm talking about kindergarten to like 2nd, 3rd grade. And I was part of this group where we went to these different schools, and we got these kids together of different faiths, and they saw what similarities they had, and we were playing music. So it was music. So it wasn't off, but it was like working with kids. But now I have my own children, and I'm saying, oh my gosh, I did that in front of kids, and I got good at that. So now I'm doing stuff with my kids at their school. I'm like, this makes sense. So there's no waste in that. So there's a lot of these opportunities that started growing. So it was a lot of different things. And then over time, as certain opportunities grew, I was able to say, no, thank you, or not anymore to certain opportunities, so I could put more focus on what was important. Because when I found myself, there were a couple of instances where I was invited to certain festivals or, yoga type brands that changed my life. And that for sure was like awakening moments of like, wow, there's a life opportunity here. And that's another, story. So my name is DJ Taz Rashid, and I can say for the last 10 to 13 years, I've been working really closely with different teachers and brands in the wellness community, specifically yoga, meditation, breathwork, certain brands like Wanderlust, One Commune, Mind Valley, Apple Fitness Plus, and those were some of the bigger ones, but then the list goes on, working with hundreds of actual yoga teachers and yoga studios as well. And of course, performing at their festivals and events and online programs, and then licensing with a lot of these communities as well. So I have probably released over 800, 900 tracks over this period of time. A lot of them are actually under different names, because I'm a ghostwriter as well for certain brands. So I make music from lo-fi, hip-hop, deep house, ambient, drones, down tempo, and then as my DJ Taz Rashid brand, I release different styles of music as well, because I just love different music. So my audience loves that, because as yoga teachers or meditation or breathwork teachers, they're able to find a lot of variable or different types of music from my own library, and I have programs to help them where I license my music to them at a very affordable cost, so they can monetize their products and videos online, courses, things like that. So that's been a real beautiful way to help them as well. So millions and millions of streams have happened of my music. I'm grateful for that, for the online community, and it just keeps growing. Like one of my teachers that taught me, like, life is relationships. Okay, so everything we have, whether it's with a person or even like a group of people or a certain brand, like an inanimate or kind of object, there's a relationship that exists there. So what I think of as important is to have that relationship rather than like a one-off thing. So whenever I look at opportunities now, I look at how can we create this for a long-term thing rather than one quick thing. And that has allowed me to stay in touch with so many of these brands and communities, and the new opportunities come as well, which is a beautiful thing. Yeah, as a musician, I would say the largest struggle is where to focus, because when you start off, you're kind of by yourself, just like you don't really have a pure North Star of like, this is the plan laid out for you. So the struggle is, time. Like, you have a certain amount of time, like choosing like how to invest time. So I struggled with that a little bit in the beginning, but then I discovered something called Human Design System, actually through Greenheart, Laura and Emmanuel, we did this where I learned that I'm a projector, and my opportunity for me is to be open to invitations rather than push my agenda into situations. So that was, I think 2013, I learned this about myself. So the struggle or the stress of like making something work kind of went away, and I became in the receptive mode. So that challenge that kind of was there was quickly went away. So I put my energy into what I was invited into and go full force into that rather than look elsewhere. It's like you're dating somebody, just date them really, really well rather than looking around for the next person or what else is out there, if that makes sense. And if that doesn't work out or that evolves, maybe that's not the best example, but I think you know what I'm talking about. It's like you just go full into those relationships or those opportunities that are present. And then energetically, other opportunities either notice that or they hear about it or they refer to it and they would find it. So I think the challenge was how to make it work financially, because there was a lot of small things happening where there were like small appetizers where you need the entrees, and at that time I didn't have kids, so that pressure wasn't there. But I would have to say, like, figuring out finances was definitely a challenge, not in like a strife, like, oh my God, I'm gonna have to like go borrow money from a bank or some parents or something like that. But it was definitely tight. There was the beginning stages was very like, okay, check to check kind of like situation, but there was trust. And that, I would have to say, is a big leap of faith and understanding that there's no other option. Like, if you don't do this, you will actually, steal something from your soul. If you go, so for my option was, I had a home healthcare business opportunity that I could have gone into, which ideally was like, oh, this is going to be safe. This is going to give you money. You're going to become a partner. even with that, I had a knowing that I couldn't do that. So I said no to a financial safe opportunity and went this route of not knowing, which was a huge jump. But I was ready to make it because after being in the corporate world of living unfulfilled lifestyle for 5 years, I was just like, I was done with that. So I didn't care the cost of what questions I would have of how to make it work. But I would say that was probably one of the biggest challenges in the beginning. I think one of the opportunities that I had was I went to school for business. So I went to school for marketing and organizational leadership and entrepreneurship. So when I came out of business school, I didn't go into really any of those. I went to a sales jobs. So thankfully, sales in life is everything at the end of the day. Whether someone has issues with money or business or sales, it doesn't matter. Like if there's a transaction happening of any kind, that's a sales situation. So luckily I had inside and outside sales training for whatever I was selling, whether it was hotel rooms or in real estate or copier machines or energy contracts or my last one, which was a university, DeVry University. These are all sales positions. I understood some of those economics. It wasn't that I was like the best sales guy in the world by any means, but I understood some basics, and I put that into use for my brand and for myself when I was working with organizations and people. I realized like, hey, this is, so I looked and studied more about that. You know, you have to surround yourself, you have to study. So to answer your question about how did I learn, I started studying everything I could, not only in my world, but about leadership, about managing money, about entrepreneurship. You know, there's so many amazing like teachers out there that are like money gurus or what. I was just yes to all of that, studying the laws of attraction. The spiritual world is big into understanding how to attract into your life, and clearing. So not just education education, I would say, is extremely important. You have to do that because that's something in your power that we can actually do, right? There's a lot of things that are out of our control, but certain things that are in our control. One top thing, your attitude. What is your attitude? Are you in gratitude or are you complaining? So that is one thing we can control. How are we going to respond to the situation? Are we going to complain? Are we going to take a deep breath and work it? The other one is education, right? So are you educating yourself? Because confidence comes from education. The more competent you are about what you're offering or doing, the more confidence will exude through your aura, through your energy, or whatever you're working towards. So I started getting into master classes. I'm obsessed. Even now, I have a subscription to Masterclass, the app, for example. When I was in music production, that's all I did was watch videos. I did a whole online school program. That's how I got good. It's very nerdy. Music production is very, it's all nuts and bolts. Like it's not just like a creative thing. It is a creative thing, but it's a very technical thing. And that takes education, and you need to have teachers. So I surrounded myself with different teachers of all kinds. I would find any teacher, I would pay them, like having a coach, whatever it is. Teachers of spirituality, teachers of finance, teachers of love, whatever it is, human design. Like you have to find teachers that are better than you so you can learn about it and not try to figure it out yourself, because you can go the route of figuring it yourself. It's just going to take you longer. Our life is short. Find and hire. That money you spend on yourself, yes, you're paying somebody else, but you're investing in yourself. And yourself is the biggest investment you'll actually make. So if we don't learn to invest in ourselves, that's actually a miss, in my opinion. So I started doing that early on in 2009, even when I was in the corporate field, by taking classes. And one was at this Bodhi Spiritual Center, and it was called The Artist's Way. It's, of course, changed my life because I got in touch with my artists again. Even when I was still in the cubicle, I was building this DJ Taz Rashid character on the side, which I didn't even know about. So you're workshopping, and you're in the lab, like the etheric lab of creating someone that you don't even know about. But that takes effort. You have to show up to that, And so I always tell people, what's one step you can take towards this dream, this passion, whatever you want to do. education, studying, become a nerd, become obsessed with it. Use your time, not just like swiping. We didn't have as much swiping back then. There was distraction, but now there's so much distraction. Use your time to learn about your subject, about what you're struggling with, what your issues are. Take the time to educate yourself so you know how to walk the path better, because it's your own path. I think it depends on, different parts of the world, but I would say for the most part, this world has subscribed to an idea of the majority of the matrix, like the 90%. It's to the idea that, these are your options. These are kind of jobs that you need to do, career paths, and these are hobbies, and you can't do this kind of stuff. But I think the idea that you will work for someone, taking orders, has been subscribed. Like, you have to get a job, like that is something that's weaved into the fabric of our matrix that's in the general populace. Of course, there are entrepreneurs and folks out there that are telling their kids that, oh, don't do that, start your own business. But that's that's a small amount. Entrepreneurship is very small. Me, like growing up, like I look at most of I do have family members that are in business, but majority of them are like doctors or engineers, because that's what their culture has taught them. It's not their fault. That's what their parents taught them. That's what their culture taught them. It's the programming, I was lucky in one way that my parents, they're both doctors, but they actually told me that I could do anything else. They could do something else. They told me, pick something else, actually. My dad actually said, don't go into medicine. He said, do something different. Because he knew that he's a musician and an artist, and he didn't do any of that. Okay, like he was great, and I would watch my whole life that he was a kind of like a superstar in our community, singing and playing the harmonium. So I saw him in that spectrum my whole life, thinking he's so great. But obviously it wasn't a path. He was also an amazing artist, and that was another hero of mine to see that. But he gave me that permission, and my mom was very open. She still pushed me a little bit to go into the medical field, but she wasn't pushing, or like, it wasn't like you hear about the angry Asian parents that are, but there are those parents, and that creates a big heaviness. So most people don't even have the opportunity to think about what they actually want to do. They go and, get a major in their college and saying this will pay this kind of money. Great. Safety, security, and fear are weaved into that conversation in the subconscious. There's a lot of fear of like instability. How will you make a life? You won't be able to do this. What will society think of you? It's embarrassing, this and that. Like my parents saying, oh, my son is a yoga DJ or a yoga musician. Like that's like a crazy thing to like think of. Like, is that even, like, what is that? Is that real? But they're like super proud of me, and they know that like I'm doing it and I'm still showing up. But most people don't get the opportunity to even think about what their purpose is. That's the first issue, and then there's other issues as well. Yeah, what I would say is, first of all, what advice for people, who don't know what their purpose is yet? What I would invite them to look into, and just really, it's self-inquiry, because there's nothing that says that that job at that corporation is bad, or if they're happy with that, and that's making them feel, here's the word, fulfilled. That's actually a key word. Because like, if you're feeling fulfilled at that corporate job and you feel genuinely happy in your family, that's okay. Like, I don't demonize any of what I did. Like, I had to go through that path, but I was not fulfilled. And that's an issue to take into consideration. It's like, so when you're feeling the first thing, like, I don't feel like I'm fully giving myself into the world, that's the first time to start asking, like, what am I actually doing here? So self-inquiry, in my opinion, is very important to start with. And then they're like, well, what do I do? So my advice in that situation would be to start like working either with somebody or having a conversation, or just self-inquiry, like what I actually like to do. Like, if this is the famous question, like if money wasn't an issue, what would you do with your time? That's a great place to start. Not saying like that's what your mission is or you have to do that, but that's a great place to start to see what you even want to do. I know folks that are out there who don't even know what they like. Their parents and they don't know what their hobbies are because they don't have any, or they've neglected it, they've forgotten about it, they've adulted so much that they don't even know what they enjoy. And that's, in my opinion, kind of sad because you've kind of forgotten about yourself. And when I did that book, The Artist's Way, that allowed me to do steps and find out what I was wanting to connect to. So some folks don't even know what's available for them to enjoy. So find out what you would want to do, what kind of activities would make you happy, right? Like what gives you joy when you do it. That's another thing to look into. And then connecting with those communities. That's actually a big first step. So I always tell people, like, you don't have to jump from your job or what, like you don't have to like quit tomorrow and just start fresh. That, in my opinion, is actually not a good solution because you have to pay your bills, because you'll get into stressful situation then of finances. So finances is a big part in this conversation. So do keep your job, but in your free time, this is where the side hustle mentality comes in. If you have a solid job and you're doing okay with that, but you're unhappy with it, keep that job. But on your side time, spend as much time of that as you can, again, to learn about what you want to do. When you figure that out, find the communities that are involved in those activities. And you have to start connecting with those people, because you may realize you absolutely love it, or may realize that's not for me, actually. I need to look somewhere else, because sometimes what we think we may enjoy, we may not actually enjoy that. It's like a desire, like inkling, but you have to go do it. So desires are actually very important to look at. Some schools of thought will say desires are bad. You have to get rid of them. I think desires are actually worth really looking into, because they're coming from you. It's not coming from somewhere else. It's coming from you. So take a look at that and explore it, in a safe way, and see how much of that is actually true to your innermost being of like authenticity and actually wanting to do that. And in that process, so much will come up of actualization, because this is the self-actualization process, and it's a spiritual journey when we're starting to explore these aspects of ourself. So connecting with community is big, because you're going to start surrounding yourself with other like-minded individuals, and from that, so many things are possible. I don't know, like that's the choose your own adventure route. Like I met this person and now I'm in a band, or I met this person, I'm dancing here and doing art here. This project opened up. I got this invitation to travel to this country to offer this. So that is something. And in your city, in America at least, there's these. I used to use a group called like Meetup.com. I don't know. I think they're still around. But I was obsessed with meditation, tribal groups, drum circles. I would go. You can ask my wife. I would go find these groups all over the city and just jam with them. It was okay. And then go somewhere else, hop around, connect with people, ask questions. That I was doing that while I was in the corporate world, because it interested me. And you have to take those actions. Those are the steps towards, it does not happen overnight, but the universe starts noticing. Now, from a spiritual standpoint, I would say the universe or your muse or whatever that energy is, your authentic self, starts realizing, oh, this person is starting to, get out of his like mold or her mold, and like trying to like find something. So let me show them a couple other things. So you start getting out of your regular comfort zone, and new things are created for us to enter. New portals open up in our daily lives. So I think those are some good places to start. Okay, so what is self-actualization? There are many definitions, I'm sure, but for me, what I've learned, self-actualization is, there's one book that's very important that we all have to read, and it's actually your book. The book that you've been writing your whole life, your story, and your understanding of yourself. So self-actualization is when you truly start understanding what your soul is here to do on this earth and to be, and what you are and what you represent. And that is your story. So the more you study yourself, you're reading your own book. And that to me has raised a lot of awareness around how I need to operate in this world, this matrix, and this human experience. So the effect I would say I've had on the world is obviously through music. And I know that there's thousands, if not millions, of people listening to my music out globally because I see the numbers. And I know that a lot of them are actually teachers. So they're using my music in their wellness practices. And what that means to me is that they are using this music for their students. So it's being heard by more numbers than actually what I see the stats online, because they're played live for large groups of people. And to me, what that easily fulfills and connects to my mission, which is helping to awake and create more empowerment in humanity. And the music has been the way to digitally reach millions of people globally. And it is actually helping them awaken, because a lot of the music I create are meditation music, binaural beats, breath work, so it's being implemented in that way. And I would say the music I write for a lot of these apps that have millions of followers, some of these apps that I write music for, my name may not even be on there because I'm a ghostwriter for some of them, but I know that it's not about the ego getting the fame, it's about the impact that the art is having on people. And that for me is the win, because that's the mission. And with that, the fruits of financial abundance and the other things, it's a byproduct. You don't have to strive for that. That's a natural occurring from just showing up and serving, the community through being the purpose. Like you are the purpose, and that to me is just like, I feel that's fulfilling. That's the word. That to me like fills up my heart, where I know that the impact is occurring regularly, even right now. Oh, okay. You want me? So like, what is frequency? Without getting too technical, when we say frequency, if you think of yourself as like a radio or like a dial, you change the frequency of a radio. So we are what you can't really see. Some people may see, but what you don't see is that we are energetic beings, and the frequency are different ways we're interacting with the world. And so if we have a frequency of love or joy, these are all energies and emotions. So emotion is actually the secret to experiencing frequencies or shifting. So when we go into, say, anger or madness or joy, or our frequencies changing instantly. So we have that power to become aware of our emotions or what we're feeling in the moment, and we can change our frequency very quickly. And that is one of the greatest ways to shift our state. So if we want to be in a certain state at a certain point, rapidly. So that's a very powerful way to shift into some sort of a frequency, or state that you would like to be in a moment. And this is great for when like a road rage comes up, or anger, or usually destructive frequencies or emotions that come up. If we start becoming aware of that, it's super powerful. The breath is also a great way to slow things down, so we have the ability to become aware of ourselves, to slow down your breath, take a deep breath in, and that slows down the energy, and be like, oh wow, I'm going into an anger state. Okay, what do I actually want to go into right now? Maybe that's needed in that moment, but usually not. And a different behavior can happen rather than a destructive one in the moment. What would the world look like if everybody was living their purpose? I feel like the world would be a happier place. And if you study most spiritual, lineages or schools of work, they want to love and be loved. And when you experience that, you're happy. Like a true happiness can happen. And I think a lot of misery and strife and stress in this world are happening because people are not living their purpose. So if you like back that up, it's like, oh, okay, if everyone was living their purpose and they had the tools for abundance economically and making that happen, then there would be less wars, politically people would get along, people would be more acceptable of one another, because when someone is really fulfilled, most things don't bother them. When someone's really tight, angry, the smallest thing they could flip out and blow up, because there's so much inside that's not fulfilled. And there's that word again. So with deep purpose, mass purpose, in the globe, more happiness, more joy, more love, more passionate living.
If this episode sparked something inside of you, consider joining a Holomovement Purpose Lab team starting this September. The world needs you to bring something that only you can, and you weren't meant to figure this out alone. Join us.